Hi there, Dylan from the future here, popping in to just warn you ahead of time. We had a couple internet outages at the end of the episode, so it does get a little bit jumpy at two separate points. If we transition topics super quickly, that's why. Anyway, just wanted to give you guys a bit of a heads up ahead of time, throwing it back to me from the past. Bye. All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to Play Pause Rewind, episode 11. We are talking about Castlevania Season 4, a little bit out of date now, but it is what it is. We're here. Niles, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I really enjoyed Castlevania, so I'm excited to talk about this. As I am every time that we're talking about something, I'm always excited to talk about it because,
I hope so.
oh yeah, I mean, I love this podcast, and it's fun to just like sit around with a friend and talk about entertainment stuff. That's always just a fun thing to do. So
I concur. And I think both of us watched... Did you rewatch it? Because I ended up rewatching the show last week because I hadn't seen it since it first came out, and I didn't remember a lot about it. I'm glad I did rewatch it, actually, because my opinion changed a lot. On first viewing, I was kind of not down for it. I didn't think the season was very good, but I like it a lot more now. And even though I'd still think it has problems. But did you rewatch it, or are you just going off of...
I didn't rewatch it. I just watched it the one time. I think every single season I watched once, except for the first season. The first season I watched like twice or three times.
Yeah, we
something like
watched the
that.
first season together at one point.
Yeah, that's one of the best seasons, I'd say.
I think so.
Yeah, that and the
Yeah.
second season. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I initially, like, I just thought this season was a lot of fucking about. And it seemed very disjointed to me. I guess I wasn't in the right headspace though, because I mean, there is a lot of just fucking around in it, but it fit better together for me this time around. And as always, we'll do very brief non-spoilers, and then we'll get into spoilers so we can talk about it for real. But this was the fourth and final season of Castlevania. The show is donezo after this, and it has a definitive ending, which makes me happy. I love when we get those. It's very rare that we get those. So
Yeah, me too. I think this, every single season of this show was great. Like I said earlier, or mentioned a little bit, the second season is probably my favorite. I think that was one of the strongest seasons
I
overall.
think it's the peak of the show as well.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, this was still a phenomenal season, and I'm glad, same as Dylan, that it came to a definitive ending. But I am excited because I heard that there's a spin-off series scheduled for like what is it? It's going to be their son in the French Revolution, something like that. Did you hear about that?
No. Well, I've heard like the potential of a spinoff, but who's Trevor and Syphus?
Yeah, so from my understanding, it's Trevor and Sypha's son. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but it's going to be a spin-off show about him, and I think it takes place during the French Revolution or something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, if they want to keep continuing it, that's fine, but as long as it's a spin-off and it's like you separate it a little bit from Alucard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as you have that definitive thing. I think just quick general thoughts before we dive in. I like this season as an ending. I think it is the weakest season of the show still. But it's fun, and everything I liked about the earlier seasons I liked about this too. It's just that there's a lot of coincidence and a lot of just like, okay, what's going on? Well, what are we doing here?
I know.
Your vague thoughts on the season, like as an ending and as a season of TV, both.
Yeah, I think it's a great ending to the show, especially that final scene. I won't spoil it, but we can talk about it later. But the final scene I thought was really touching, and I think that was a perfect ending for the show.
Yeah.
That final episode I think was just beautiful. But yeah, I would agree that some parts of it were disjointed. The whole like 6 weeks ago thing kind of threw me for a loop when I watched it. I was like, I don't really enjoy that, but as it kind of went along, I was fine with it. But some of the character choices were also quite interesting.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that shortly. But
But
I think
overall, yes.
ultimate question: best video game adaptation? Yes or no?
I didn't play the original Castlevania games. I didn't play any of them. So I don't know, but to me, yes, this is a great video game adaptation.
I have not played a Castlevania game. I probably should, but yeah, I think this is the best example of video games being adapted to film or TV that we have seen yet. That I've seen.
Well, miles ahead of like Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed is ass, man. It's a You want to jump into spoilers?
Let's do it.
Cool.
Let's do it. Why not?
I kind of broke up notes by storyline. We don't have to talk about it exactly by storyline, but I agreed with that like 6 weeks ago element. That was specifically in the Trevor and Sypha story arc, and a lot of the first half of this season is just catching up isn't even the right word. It takes a very long time for the ball to get rolling. I felt, at least. And they have an interaction at one point where I think Trevor's like, one of them is like, we've been reacting this entire time and we work best when we're acting. And then they just react for the whole rest of the season. And like, they just stumble into the plot. They're very passive as characters this time around, which I was kind of frustrated by.
Yeah, they they were doing the classic Trevor and Sypha thing, going around killing monsters and stuff, and they were total badasses, and all the action sequences were super cool. Loved them all. But the 6 weeks like ago thing, like 6 weeks later or whatever it was, like that was just jarring. Like I hate it when any kind of story starts that way. It's like the whole like the Rick and Morty episode, where they're on the Purge planet.
The small world. The little I know yeah.
The Purge planet, and he has to read the guy's like screenplay, and he's like, well, I'm not a big fan of the 6 weeks later thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was kind of like a slow build up, like a little bit of catching up. It was like, yes, this is where they were. This is what's been going on these past 6 weeks, and it certainly took its time to build up. And if you had watched, if you had binge watched the entire series and you got all the way to season 4, you'd be like, okay, let's pick up the pace a little bit.
Right, and they do they do sort of tease and introduce death very lightly in that episode. There's that, and there's like them seeing the statue of death, and then Trevor uses a scythe in a fight scene in the second episode, I think. And that is all we get in terms of teasing that there is going to be a mega plot twist at the end of the season where Varney of London, who is great, is also the like alchemist lady who is also death. That comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. That came out of left field.
I liked Death. I thought he was hilarious, but it felt a little cheap as a twist. Not as an ending to the show, but as a twist. With Trevor and Sypha's story and with Alucard's story, sort of on the flip side of me thinking it took too long to get the season going, I think this show needed another season in between season 3 and where we are now, because both storylines in season 3 end up on very dour notes. Like, Sypha and Trevor are super depressed because the guy they've been hanging out with all season, that judge dude, was killing kids, remember?
Yep.
And then Trevor has that line, it's like, we spent a few months in your world, like, saving the day and being heroes, and now we're in mine. And then in this season, they're just back to saving the day and being heroes again. And then Alucard, even more so, like, he put his trust in those two people, he took him in, he was training them, and then they betray him and almost kill him. And he ends on a very dark note, and then he's kind of ready to jump back into it and help more people right away. And I think we needed a season 4 where everyone is kind of down in the dumps for a little bit, and then in season 5 they kind of regain their vigor and reunite. But
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea, and I do agree with those like kind of character flaws because he's like, oh, these people just tried to kill me, and a few months go by, and I'm like, okay, I'll go help this random village who
not
sent me a
even.
horse.
It was only 6 weeks because we know exactly how long it was. It was like a month.
That's right. We were just talking about the 6 weeks.
That's all that. It's the only amount of time that passed, and I did like the Alucard in the letter. I thought that was funny, and I liked his just existential horror. Like, I'm becoming a Belmont. Like, I'm turning him. That was fun, but
Yeah.
it felt like they were rushing the show to the end, which is something you will never hear me say, because I love when things just have an ending. But I felt we needed just a bit more.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a very good point to make because when I was doing research for this, I realized that season 1 had 4 episodes.
Right, it's basically a prologue.
Then season 2 had 8 episodes. Then the last 2 seasons had 10 episodes each. Yeah. So, those last 2 seasons had a lot more content, a lot more like kind of gaps to fill or just like filler episodes to make. So, I think that, if they wanted to do like a season 4 where it was just like, I don't know, 4 episodes or something like that, like another kind of like prologue.
Like a mini season. Yeah.
Right. And then go into the 5th season. That could have worked really, really well with what you're saying.
I do think, while on my second viewing, I found the season less disjointed. Hector, Isaac, Camilla, all of them, completely different planet from the rest of the story, and it does not intertwine at all, which I guess is fine. It's just odd. I expected some sort of reconnecting at a certain point or another, but I guess maybe they initially planned to do that and changed their mind. But I liked Isaac especially as a character. Like, I think he is the show's most interesting character by the end and the journey he's been on. But it's just so odd that Camilla is built up in season 3 as like this big, massive threat, and she's dead halfway through the season.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's kind of wild.
I'm in the same boat. I was expecting a big climactic thing where they all kind of come together to take down Camilla, and I was hoping to see her like whole empire idea come to fruition, and that would be the whole kind of plot of season 4 of like, we got to free the people, we got to free all these people, and so we got to kill Carmilla, and it could have been a cool kind of everyone merged together, and we have this common enemy. But I think that they probably did have that plan initially, but they maybe realized, let's do something else.
Yeah, and it's fine that they didn't do it that way. It's just odd is the way to describe it. Like, I think I guess Isaac and Camilla have some sort of animosity because Isaac was the one who was more loyal to Dracula, and Camilla plotted his downfall ultimately. But it was just a odd. It was almost like they went full tangent with it, and they never came back around to the main story. And Hector and Lenore's relationship is very odd. They just go like back and forth Stockholm Syndrome, but also seem to have genuine feelings at the same time. It's a very odd dynamic.
Yeah, like, I mean, with all the shit that she put him through in season 3 and all the torment that he's gone through, like in season 2, like he was like a slave captive, and she turned him into her pet basically. And that's messed up as hell. Like,
it is messed up, but I just couldn't get a read on like what I was meant to. Was I supposed to root for them or find it weird and creepy? I did not know. And then she dies.
Yeah, I liked her death. That was beautiful.
I like it. I liked it on rewatch. Initially, I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Hector. I feel for him throughout the entire season or the entire series. Like, he's a tragic character, and ultimately he comes out on top, I suppose.
He does very well for himself by the end.
Yeah, I mean, he lost a finger, but whatever.
Oh no, yeah, yeah. It really kind of like puts puts the power of that ring into perspective, where he just like, well, one, he's just doing what he wants to do beforehand anyway. He's conspiring against them with the ring, but then as soon as he needs to, he's like, I'll just cut off the finger. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, didn't think of that, did you?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have... Isaac had a lot of interesting stuff. I really loved that scene with him and the night creature, where he's the night creature's like, what are we doing? We eat and kill and pillage, and he's like, you do that because that's all anyone's ever used you for. Have a bear. Like, and I don't know. I thought that was a really interesting scene.
Well, yeah, I always like it when, like, because he's such a thoughtful and pensive character, and he's come a long way ever since he was he like sent to the other part of the world or something like that, like by accident?
No,
I
don't remember how he got there. I think he sailed there. Or
something like that.
He was on a boat at one point. I know that. I remember him walking through a town with his army of like monsters and requesting a ship.
Yeah, and just being like, take them, kill them all, bring them to me.
But he does end up on like the far side of the world for most of season 3, which is where that town is that he's in at the beginning.
And he goes on some cool adventures over the series, He yeah, I kind of wish that I rewatched season 3 before I watched season 4, because I was like, wait, where did what happened then? But it was like he took over that city that was, it was like zombies or whatever being controlled by like one mind or something. And that was,
there was like a dark wizard or something in a tower, and he killed the wizard. Oh, and I know he does get teleported. Dracula like throws him through a mirror into the desert at the end of season 2 because Dracula recognized that Isaac will like die to protect him, and he doesn't want that. God, Dracula was so interesting.
Yeah, Dracula is really cool.
I am glad, final scene excluded, they did not resurrect him and make him the big bad of the show. Ultimately, I admire their strength and the respect for the story they had already told. Like, his death in season 2 was really tragic and beautiful, and like they undid it in this, obviously, but in a way that is good and respectful to the story at hand, because he's not an antagonist anymore. He just wants to like chill with his wife.
Yeah, he's like, oh, cool. Like, we got a second chance. Let's chill. Let's just have a nice, peaceful life and not kill anyone.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Alucard. He's an idiot. I don't understand what he was doing. Okay, so he's like, okay, we got to go at night. They won't expect that as much. And then they just get attacked by night creatures the entire way. So I don't know what his strategy was there. And that was a weird presentation thing, I think, because they show us so many of the villagers and the dog getting killed by night creatures. And it's like, why are you showing me this? What do you want me to be feeling on this road to the castle arc here? Because I thought Alucard was protecting them, but he's doing a real shit job at it.
He's just one vampire. He can't be everywhere at once. But
But then they get to the castle, and it gets worse, because they go to the castle for the security. And then he's just like, oh yeah, just set up tents outside, and we'll move you inside if we have to. And they have to, and a lot of them die before they get into the castle. Like, what is this?
Yeah, he's I just don't know what to say about him, because he's a very complex character, but yeah, he did kind of act like a buffoon this season.
It was and it's fine. It led to some great action scenes, but it's like, Alucard, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. Come on, dude. You killed Dracula. You should be smarter than this.
Yes.
Trevor Belmont. You have this entire library underground of all this knowledge. Like, come on, dude.
I did love his dynamic with the horse.
Yeah, and I did like the because they introduced kind of a love interest for him, I would say, this season.
Her name was Greta, I think.
Greta, yes, and I liked her because she was witty. She was kind of on the same level as him, I'd say, like in terms of like intelligence and wit and like how they talk to each other, and I liked that back and forth whenever they would speak to each other. But I wish that maybe she could have been introduced like in the third season, so we could have had a little bit more
Right.
character development for her, but whatever.
Or in a hypothetical fourth season
Yeah,
before this one, like, yeah, I do too. I wish we would have had a little bit more time to get to know this person. I did like her and their dynamic, and I'm glad that Alucard gets some, like, happiness and relationship as well. Because, I mean, season 2 had a happy-ish ending when they defeat Dracula and everything, and Trevor and Sypha get to go off and, like, be a couple, and then Alucard cries because he's left alone having murdered his only living parent. Like,
yeah.
so it's good to see him get some happiness and closure and eventual full closure now that his parents are alive again.
Yeah, that would be a great, like, no, I mean they won't do it, but that would be a good epilogue, but we don't need to see it,
No,
they'll
we
reunite with
just
him.
exactly we know that it will happen and that's satisfying. I love the way Alucard fights though, with the
Yes.
sword floats next to him and kind of moves on its own volition, and now he has a shield, which is very cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Great.
like whenever like as a vampire he just goes like supersonic or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like really fast moving. I'm like, why don't you do that all the time? Like, but I love that. I
It's
think
expensive.
yeah, to just become a blur and just
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to say about Alucard. That was, I guess, it.
well,
Except
well,
for
like,
the rushed nature of him putting faith in humanity again and helping people out. That was
yeah,
annoying. But
yeah. And I mean, when I was doing research for him, I was digging really into like the fan side of Castlevania, and I realized that his backstory comes from a specific game called Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
yeah.
And what they did with this series was like so clever because they like picked and chose like which kind of thematic elements they wanted to pull from the
Mm-hmm.
games. It's not like a word for word adaptation. It's like we took
Right.
a little bit and we're going to make our own thing over here. And
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate that. And I think,
It's a good way to adapt games if it's a long running series. Like Castlevania has been going back to the arcade cabinet era, so it's like take the best of all of them and put them into a show.
yeah, exactly. And one thing that I thought was really interesting too was that when I was reading up on the games and stuff, it sounds like in the games, vampires are just evil. There's no middle
Huh.
ground. They're just kind of like traditional, like in Bram Stoker,
Yeah.
vampires are just evil creatures that are just feeding on the living.
Mm-hmm.
But what I like so much about the show is that they added a little bit more complexity
Yeah,
to
there's a
Alucard.
lot.
He's
And
not just
not even just Alucard. Like even Camilla has some sympathetic streaks because wasn't she like abused by someone before she became a vampire, and that's part of the reason she's so jaded. And she came back and like killed that guy when she got vampire powers.
I think so. That rings a bell. But I mean, all the other vampires that she hangs out with too were clearly not evil. They were looking out for themselves at the end of the day, but they were a little bit more complex. They were loving. They were romantic. They were complicated, and that's
They're
what.
full people, yeah.
Yeah, it's like they had a little bit of humanity in them still, even though they weren't humans at all.
Mm-hmm. And they don't have very high opinions on humanity. Like, is Striga the big one?
Yeah,
I love when she's like angry at the humans attacking her camp. She just screams at them idiot fucking livestock.
she was brutal.
The day armor battle with her giant sword was so great.
Yeah, that was
And
badass.
I love the realization the two of them have. They're like, we could accomplish this goal, but it will never end, and we'll never see each other. Like, we'll be at war with people for till the end of time if we do this. And they just give
Yeah.
up. Like, they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, again, with those characters, I wish I got a little bit more from them in the past few seasons, but I feel like there was a good enough character
Yeah.
development in the third season for
Because they weren't
Striga.
introduced until season 3.
Yeah, they weren't.
It's just Camilla in season 2. Yeah, speaking about characters introduced in season 3, Saint Germain, who I found out an hour ago was voiced by Bill Nighy. I don't know how I didn't recognize that before, but Davy Jones is the voice of Saint Germain.
Davy Jones, huh?
Yes, yeah, I mean, amongst other things, but that's probably what he's best known for our age group. Saint Germain went on a wild ride this season.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed in him, because
Hmm.
in season 3 he seems like such a good guy, and he seems like so well intentioned. He's just trying to get back to the one that he loves and
Yeah.
say goodbye. Stupid,
Whatever.
but
Yeah.
I mean, he it seemed like he had good intentions, and
Hmm.
then this season it was like, oh no, he's actually trying to bring back Dracula.
Yeah, and I mean it for the same motivation that he had in season 3, but I just thought he was like one. I on rewatch I made a point of looking for this. The woman he loves says nothing in the whole show. She does not speak, and
Hmm.
so as an audience member, like I can't get on board with wanting Saint Germain to find his love because I don't know anything about this lady. Um, and I like why at the end when he redeems himself very abruptly, but when he redeems himself, like you see the silhouette of her and she doesn't go through. Why? Like, was she disappointed in him for not bringing back Dracula? And like, what was her motivation? Why would she not join him at this point? Who is she? Um,
Right.
and I'm disappointed in Saint Germain because I like his character and I like that he was redeemed at the end, but it is on a dime. It's the very cliche, like, what have I done? And then just he was like, I love his lines like Belmont, make yourself useful. It's like, dude, this is your fault. Like, you did this.
Come on, dude. You've been doing this for the past season. You are the bad guy.
Yeah, you made all of this happen. Um, but he does save Trevor's life, which is nice. He moves the infinite corridor like right behind Trevor or pushes Trevor through it as Trevor is killing death, saving our hero. And I'm glad Trevor didn't die. That's apparently another like trope that is treading on cliche at this point is that the male protagonist is survived by a child that they have impregnated within their love interest. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
happened. Um, we have plenty of those.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I was happy that he survived as well. And I mean, with Saint Germain, that's I do enjoy the ethical question that his character kind of poses, because
mhm.
he's trying to save, or at least get an opportunity to say goodbye to this one person, not necessarily save her soul, but he's doing this very selfish action, and he's
Mhm.
weighing one life above the rest of humanity, because he's saying, hey, if I bring Dracula back, it's not such a big deal if I get to see my loved one again.
Right, and he thinks he's going to be in control with the ring or whatever, and I I think there was more that could have been delved into with this alchemy group because the ultimate goal of I mean, alchemy, as I understood it, is the creation of gold from other things. Like, that's how I always thought alchemy was. But this is wildly different. They want to make a hermaphroditic being called a rebus by fusing two souls into a body containing biological parts of both male and female, which is a lot. And
Yeah.
so he wants to fuse Dracula and Dracula's wife, Lisa's souls together into this being. And that is how they return, presumably. I think you can I think the like explosion at the end kind of splits in a way that is like other souls have split back. That could have just been my imagination knowing that they return. But yeah, Saint Germain went for a ride this season, and he was just so easily played by death. I guess it was death all along. Um, Speaking of death, Varney of London is the best part of the season. He's so
Yeah, Barney's great. I mean, he's really funny, and I love how he just goes around. He's like, "How does it? You guys know who the fuck I am? Varney
I'm
of
Varney of
fucking."
London.
He's so weird. And the
And
one thing that
Ratko is his like counterpart. Is
yeah,
terrifying, but also really funny. He's like, and I love when Varney's like being all high and mighty, and Ratko's like, Dracula sent you to a city that he had already conquered to recapture. It's like, how important do you really think you are?
yeah, yeah. They had a good back and forth, and the one thing that I just wish, again, I wish that they were introduced a season ago, or like at least like if Varney could have been like in the background of season 2 in Dracula's court.
Right, yeah, just been around, yeah. Because he ultimately is the antagonist of the season, because he becomes Death, and he's the one who's being fought in the final battle. Like, and it does feel, in a sense, a little anticlimactic, because, what was that? Anticlimactic. Yeah, you're right. He just pops up this season, and he's great. He's a great character, and I love the idea that like the only people left who are trying to work for Dracula are like the dregs of his court, just the lowest members of it that are still around because they just happened to not be at the castle when Trevor and Alucard and Sypha attacked in season 2.
Yeah, they're just like, I don't know what to do with my life now. I guess.
Yeah,
I'll just try and find every possible avenue of bringing Dracula back. Like, what a way to live.
mm-hmm. I love the early scene where Sypha and Trevor find the people trying to resurrect Dracula, and Trevor's like, why would anybody want to do that? It's like, he looks over to the captured people's like, would you do that? Like, no, of course you wouldn't.
They're just like, no.
And he looks back at the guy he killed. He's like, I wish I could kill you twice.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think
I think that they carry the weaker season. I like it. All of our cast are fun to watch, and I like their dynamics. When they're reunited in episode 9, it's very satisfying. I think seeing them all fight together when the show's theme kicks in as they're fighting, like, that's really neat.
Oh yeah, like they all just kind of, he's like in his last, like he's about to get attacked, like overwhelmed or something, and then all of a sudden Trevor comes in and Sypha comes in with the fire and shit, and
Sypha's so OP. It's amazing.
I love her.
She's so cool.
Yeah, forget Trevor. Sypha for days.
Well, every fight they're in together, it's like the reverse of the Last Jedi throne room scene where Rey is fighting one guy and Kylo's taking on like 6. It's that. It's like Trevor is working very hard at the one guy he's fighting, and Sypha is just clearing the room outside of that. I think usually pair up Trevor with the one tougher opponent just so it's a little bit more even. Like he's fighting Ratko in the underground court, and Sypha kills everybody else.
Right, and Trevor gets stabbed like a million times, but he still lives.
Yeah,
somehow. He still lives.
Because it's fine.
Because he's a Belmont, and I don't know.
And I guess he has armor. I guess that shirt is armor in some way.
Well, I think I just have a grievance with the ending where it's like, here's Trevor Belmont, monster killer, and he kills Death.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is that? Death feels like a being that's been there since the beginning of time. Like, how do you kill, like, Death incarnate? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm okay with it, like whatever, but like we talked about, Varney, who is Death, isn't introduced until this season. Like, there's no build up to Trevor fighting Death. It's like at the end of the show, Death is here now, and he's the one who's left to fight. So that's because like Trevor's not gonna fight Saint Germain.
Yeah, that would be an easy fight.
It would be a very easy fight, and they're friends, kind of. I did love that Sypha and Trevor shared a glance when Alucard's like, "Oh yeah, this guy Saint Germain is upstairs, like trying to resummon my father," and they're like, "Oh god."
They're like, "We helped this guy 6 weeks ago."
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the Targovishta Underground Court Zamfir storyline?
That was the weakest part of this season, I think, for me. I didn't really like it. I felt it was a little forced.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was so Trevor could pick up that, the special knife or whatever, and so that way they could figure out who's trying to resurrect.
What a handy coincidence that he found that dagger, the exact dagger that he needed to kill Death at the end of the show. Like, what is it with stories and protagonists finding incredibly plot important daggers in underground places that they just happen to be in. Like, Star Wars and now this. What is this? Like,
I don't know.
because Trevor found 2 different knives, remember? He found the little spinny one in the court underground, which, fine, that's just a weapon that he likes and is useful. And it's probably an item from the games that you get at some point, I'm assuming. But the other one that he finds early on, he just picks that up, and he finds a stone that goes into it, and that ends up being what saves the day. It's very contrived.
Yeah, that part was like, okay, whatever, dude. I guess if that's how you want to play the season, fine. But yeah, I think that was a little those like picking up those daggers. It's like, okay, yeah, I didn't really like it as well.
Yeah, I agree. The other underground court stuff and Zamfir as a character was kind of annoying to me. Like when the reveal happened that she was just insane and that her monarchs that she was serving were dead. I'm like, oh, I guess it's kind of interesting. I just don't know what they were wanting to do with her, like what her purpose was, other than the mirror was down there that Varney needed, and a dagger was down there.
Mm-hmm. And I think, maybe it could have been something to maybe inspire Trevor and Sypha or something like that. But I don't know. I'm in the same boat. I don't know why she was really a character.
It was an odd detour. It was very strange.
But yeah, I liked how Sypha called her out on her bullshit pretty consistently.
Yeah, she's like, you're hogging all of this stuff. And then Trevor tests the holy water that they're using to like block out the vampires. Like, it doesn't work. It's not real. Like, everything this girl was doing down there was just a complete failure, which was kind of funny. But
I mean, I guess it was kind of neat to see, like, because that city had already been ravaged by like the night creatures and stuff. Like, it was turned upside down. So I guess it was kind of neat to see how civilians were living. Still there, or it's like, why are you living there? Just move. Like,
I mean, where are they going to go, I guess? But
true, yeah.
Yeah, I liked the idea of there being an underground court, but that also, like, the people on the surface were getting abandoned by it because they were focusing too much on the royalty or something like that. And I think there's a line Sypha says where it kind of implies Zamfir was maybe part of that royal establishment, like she's the last one left, and that's kind of what drove her insane. But it's ultimately she's very underdeveloped, and they spend a lot of time on her. And I don't think that was as needed.
No, definitely not. I could have done without Zamfir, but whatever. I don't got much to say about her, honestly.
Yeah, I do want to say too, because we are kind of shitting on a lot of the season, but I think we both liked it. I'm satisfied with Castlevania as a show. Like, I'm glad where it ended up, and I liked a lot of the stuff in season 4.
Yeah, me too. 100%. I loved this season, and the series overall was amazing. I was super happy that we got this, like, so many seasons that were so consistent and like had these great characters in it. With, I like violent shows sometimes, so it's nice to have like a nice violent, bloody, gory show.
Yeah, and it's cool to just like the show just kind of goes for it. It has absurd, over the top, cartoony action. Like, it is a show that can only exist in animation. It wouldn't be as fun or dynamic if this was a live action adaptation, I don't think. Not that you can't do a live action Castlevania, but I think it was great. And season 3 especially was so interesting because they made the decision, they killed off Dracula in season 2, and they committed an entire season where you only see Dracula on screen for like 8 seconds, and that's when someone's looking into hell and sees him there, and he doesn't say anything. And then in this season, they maintained that restraint and did not have Dracula being a force in it. People wanted to bring him back, so the threat was looming, but I respect what they did. Unfortunate downside of it is if you kept Dracula alive the entire time, that provides a very natural climactic villain for you. But the way they wrote Dracula wasn't as villainous as I think he is in the games, or they could have. So, but I mean, someone like Camilla would have been a more organic final boss for this season, and she was killed halfway through by Isaac. And
with his army.
And like Isaac and Hector are major characters, but I wouldn't consider them our main characters by any means. And
no, definitely not. I mean, Trevor and Sypha, they feel like the main ones, and Alucard as well. The trio, those are the main characters. But I think it would have been nicer to have like that kind of climactic battle where it's Alucard and Trevor and Sypha teaming up with Isaac and Hector to bring down Carmilla and her empire of farming all the humans for their blood. Like that would have been really interesting. But I'm also perfectly fine with the ending that we got. I liked it a lot.
Ultimately, like my grievances with the season are assuaged a little bit just because it's satisfying. The end, like it's satisfying where everybody ends up, and then we get a nice happy ending. They're going to build a little town there between houses, and it's cute. And
I like that.
And Lisa are alive, living in an inn, which is nice. I guess we don't have a ton more that we need to say about the show. Like, it's a good show, worth watching. Oh, Varney is voiced by Malcolm McDowell, by the way. Found that out. If you looked him up, you would be like, oh, that guy, I know him. He's in lots of things, but
good to know. Oh yeah, when I was looking it up, I found out that Lance Reddick was in season 3.
Who is he?
He's the ship captain with Isaac.
Oh yeah, okay.
Well, like anytime I see his name, I'm like Lance Reddick because of The Wire, and I just still think it's. He was in John Wick.
He's the hotel guy, right?
I think so.
Front desk clerk.
But he's also in. I think we mentioned it in Godzilla v Kong. He's He's got that like. His name's in the title credits. Mm-hmm. Yeah, his name's in the title credits, and then he's in the movie for 8 seconds. Yeah.
Wonderful.
But I thought that was really cool that he was in there. He was one of the few names I recognized. One thing that when I was doing my research, I found out was that the show was originally planned to be a movie. So they I forget all the history behind it, but a movie had been drafted, like the script, like the idea had been kind of put together.
Yeah.
I think as early as 2007 or something like that, or maybe 2009. But then it just kind of hit a wall, didn't go any further. It was just kind of locked up. And then Netflix acquired it, and then they're we're going to turn this into a show. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, it's cool. I think, in general, and I've said it before, but I think the better way to adapt video games is TV, unless you're just taking the premise and making a movie out of the premise, like Assassin's Creed tried to do, or Warcraft. Yeah. And Tomb Raider worked as a movie. But video games are longer form narratives, so they deserve longer adaptations.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'd love to see a World of Warcraft series, that movie was great.
I would love a Warcraft series. The problem is it would be so expensive because in a Lord of the Rings, the orcs, you could have just people in prosthetics and makeup and stuff like that. But none of the non-human creatures in Warcraft are people-sized. Orcs are huge. They're 8 feet tall and have arms that are this thick. So you had to that's why they're all CGI in the movie.
Yeah.
They have to be because of the way their bodies are structured. And that's the same for everything in that series.
Yeah, right. But, it would be expensive.
It would be very expensive. Speaking of expensive TV, we'll have to touch on Jupiter's Legacy in a little bit after we're done talking about this.
Totally.
But
I found out something else that was kind of funny. What do you think? Why do you think it's called Castlevania?
Oh,
I'm just asking.
The property as a whole. I don't know actually.
So it's actually a little weird. So because it was Konami made the
Hmm.
game. They're Japanese. And so when they translated it to English, the original translated title was Dracula's Satanic Castle, which I think is a horrible name for sure.
Atrocious,
Yeah.
atrociously bad.
Um, and they changed the name for a few reasons. First was because they didn't want to have any religious overtones
Mm.
associated with the game. They didn't want the word satanic associated with it, so that's why they kind of changed it. But they also changed it because they thought the name kind of sounded similar to Transylvania.
Mm.
So there's a little
Oh,
bit of
okay.
parallel there.
That
Um,
makes sense.
yeah, when I was reading a little bit more on it, it's like, oh yeah, but the name is literally like it doesn't mean anything. It's gibberish. Like Castlevania means nothing.
No, but now it means something.
Yeah, now it means something.
They Shakespeare'd it. They made their own word, and now it has meaning.
Exactly.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I like the name a lot. And there was when I was doing my research, there was also a funny thing that well, not entirely funny, but a weird note was
Hmm.
that no one actually knows who like made the original 8-bit video game of Castlevania, like the
Really?
first one. Yeah, it was because back in the day with the game credits,
Uh huh.
well, the game credits of the original game were a mess. Like I didn't really understand a lot of it, but like some of the names were switched around and it didn't really make any sense. Um, I didn't have enough time to read it, obviously. But it was also because game creators back in the day in Japan were kind of expected to go by a pseudonym. Like the developers wanted them to do that because if they put their original name out there,
Uh huh.
they were kind of worried that they would eventually get like name recognition and then they would have to pay them more. So
Isn't that nice?
I know, yeah, and there are some theories about who did it. Like I think people know exactly who did. I didn't write down his name,
Hmm.
but no one can say definitively it was one person or the other, which
Wow.
I thought was just kind of an interesting
That
fact.
is wild.
Yeah. Um,
So
but
you were
yeah, overall,
saying the show is getting a spin-off during the French Revolution,
I
um,
think so.
or potentially in the French Revolution, with Trevor and Sypha's kid as the main character. I wonder if his name
Yeah,
is Simon. I think Simon Belmont is the traditional protagonist. In
it will.
or
It
there
will
are various
star.
Belmonts, I believe. Or did they
Yeah.
cast already?
Well, no, I don't think they've cast it, but
Hmm.
like it will. The kid's name will be Richter Belmont.
Oh, Richter. He's in Super Smash Bros.
Richter. And then the chick's name is going to be Maria Renard
Okay.
from Rondo of Blood and Symphony of Night. I don't. I guess those are some of the games.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be during the French Revolution. But yeah, it'll have Richter. Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know any more than that, but it
Cool.
sounds cool, and I will definitely watch it. If it's half as good as Castlevania, I'm sure I'm going to love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good, like, I guess final thoughts on Castlevania season 4 and the show. Season 4 is the weakest of the show, but it delivers a satisfying conclusion, and the show as a whole is great. I think is what I would say.
Yeah, I would echo that
Great
sentiment.
voice actors all around. I think it's Graham McTavish is Dracula though, and he is probably the standout of the show. He's so good.
Yeah,
Mm,
he's got a great voice, and um, yeah, I mean, all the characters were great. Isaac, Hector, Camilla,
mhm.
Trevor, Sypha, Belmont, or excuse me, Alucard.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good characters throughout this entire series, and I appreciated all of them. And season 4, yeah, I'd agree, is probably the weakest season,
Hmm.
but it was still satisfying. It was still good, and I feel like it tied everything up in a nice bow. That wasn't like perfect, but it was like this is good enough to set up a spinoff, and it's
Right.
satisfying.
It left enough like hooks open so you know that the world will go on, but the story we're watching is over, which I think is the best way to end a property. It's like
Hmm.
you can show me that the character's life will continue, but you don't need to show me the rest of the life.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think.
I hope.
Oh
Oh, I was
no.
just gonna say, I hope that Alucard gets his dolls replaced.
Okay. So you want to do
All
other
right.
stuff? What are you watching? What are you reading?
Yeah. I've watched Army of the Dead the other
Same.
week or the other day. Yeah, over the weekend. Yeah, and I mean, it was a great film. It was a lot of fun all the way through. I like me a good Zack Snyder film, and It was nice that this one wasn't a Joss Whedon version. Um,
Yeah, I
but
thought that was solid. I had a lot of cool characters. It was a unique-ish premise, and it's one of the Snyder films I like. So, yay.
yeah, I liked how it blended. It took like it was genre bending. Because it was like, let's
Hmm.
take the classic movie, like zombie movie, and let's take the classic heist movie and just mesh them together and see what we get. And I think
Yeah.
they did a really good job of that. Um, but yeah, I think you and I kind of already talked about this offline.
Hmm.
But I think that Dave Bautista still has got some growing up to do as an actor, or at least
Yeah.
he's got to get a little bit better at it. But he did a fine job
Yeah.
as a main character.
I think having seen him in Blade Runner 2049, like his acting in that is amazing, I think, in the scene he's in. I didn't think he was that spectacular in this. He was fine. But overall, positive opinion on the movie, I think.
Yeah, it
I
was a little long.
yes, it was. I watched it like a few days later than I intended to just because of that. But oh shit, I should have done another clap sync. I'm doing one now. Okay. I'll need to resync the audio. Okay. I finished Jupiter's Legacy. It was off.
Yay!
It got canceled by Netflix, so I guess we'll never see where it was meant to go. I'm bummed because I think it wasn't that good, but it had potential to be very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Apparently they didn't even get to the comic. They didn't even get to the comic storyline.
Wow, that's a bummer.
Yeah,
Shoot.
but that being said, like, I was almost more interested in the flashbacks than the modern day stuff, and seeing a bunch of people get superpowers in the late 20s, early 30s would have been kind of cool. That's around the time when superhero comics started, so it would have been neat to see heroes doing hero work during the Great Depression. Like, that would have been pretty wild.
Yeah, I agree. I like the back in the day stuff. That was pretty neat.
Hmm.
And I mean, overall, I think Jupiter's Legacy it was all right. It kind of beat you over the head with that idea of like, does the superhero have the right to be like judge, jury, and executioner?
Hmm.
Should they be able to kill? It was kind of like a commentary on policing, I think, at the same time.
Mm.
I think that was interesting, and some of the powers, like the guy with the stick who could teleport
Oh
anywhere.
yeah, yeah. It was
I
neat.
thought that was so cool. I could see a whole like series of that, just him doing criminal activities.
Yeah.
I love that. Like,
Oh, his character's dad, the like best friend from the past, George. Um,
yeah.
that's Clone Wars Anakin Skywalker. I don't know if you knew that. That's Matt Lamb
Oh,
voices Anakin in the
I didn't know that.
yeah.
That's cool.
But yeah, it had potential. It didn't quite land, and it will never come back probably.
Yeah, it's sad because it ended on that cliffhanger ending. Well, not super cliffhanger, but it set up where it was like, oh, it was the brother the whole time.
Oh
It was
my,
So I
yeah.
was like, wow, I didn't see, I honestly wasn't paying that close attention, so I didn't really see that coming, which was
I
kind
don't
of a
think
nice
they gave
reveal.
us the information we needed to figure that twist out. I don't think he did
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. How much money did they? I wasn't it
Oh,
like an
so much. It was like
yeah.
200 million an episode.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
insane.
Or I think it was per episode, but it was a lot of money. Um,
And that's the finished product.
mhm. Well, a lot of the theory is that the expense went to the flashbacks because if you're going to do stuff like that, you have to design all these period piece costumes. You can't just go buy clothing from a tailor or something. So you have to custom make all this period piece clothing and all that, and even for all of your extras and everything like that, and that adds up
Yeah,
to 200 million. But that's a lot of money.
yeah. Didn't like WandaVision have like a similar budget or something? And
Yeah, well, it had a big budget too, and I don't want to state hard numbers because I actually do not remember. But the thing with WandaVision and Loki and all of the Marvel shows is they're big budget, but the nice thing about their production right now is that they already have all of the CGI and practical assets for those characters' costumes and sort of like 3D rigs for when they're fully CGI. So they don't have to spend money developing all of that. It's there. So, but for a new IP like a Jupiter's Legacy, they have to do all of that from scratch. And so the cost is going to be front loaded a little bit. And I guess it didn't resonate well enough to keep going. I do really want to watch on Netflix Sweet Tooth, though. I think that's next on my list to watch.
Yeah, that just kind of seemed neat. I'm into that. I know nothing about it, so that'll be a good series to explore and go in blind.
Yeah, so everyone, real quick, it may be in the episode, maybe not, but we had a couple disconnections there, so there may be no like other stuff that we're watching or reading for this episode. We'll include it next time. If not, Niles, where can people find you online?
People can find me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. If you want to see some weird ass photography from time to time, check it out.
Yeah.
What about you, Dylan? Where can people find you?
People can find me at D-Day Movies on Twitter and YouTube, and also at DylanD1026 on Instagram. All of that's linked in the description for both of us. If you enjoyed the show, thank you so much for sticking around. Feel free to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. If you're on an audio podcast platform, please leave a review. It helps us out a lot. But you don't have to if you don't want to. That's okay, too. And we will see you all in 2 weeks' time. I forgot what the topic's going to be, but, we'll find out in the future. We'll find out together.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, have a good one, everybody. Bye.
Bye.